Hi knitters! Today we are going to finish up with the ribbing and the bind off. So this is a really easy step in the project. There is one little trick you're going to need to know before you start the ribbing, and I'm going to share a little hack with you for an easier bind off method. So let's go to my workstation and get this project finished up. This is a very exciting moment because we are about ready to start the very last section, which is the ribbing section. It's going to be very similar to before with a possible twist. So I'm going to show you that twist first, and then I'm also going to show you a little hack on the bind off method. So let's get started reading the pattern. It says work in a possibly modified 2x2 rib for 1 inch, beginning with knits or purls in keeping with stitch pattern. If you have 2 knits after your stitch marker, then work knit 2, purl 2 around. If you have 2 purls after your stitch marker, then work purl 2, knit 2 around. All right, so let's take a look at this. I have my stitch marker. And remember I said you could end this last row on either a row 4, 8, or 12. So that's why it's hard to tell you exactly what your next step is going to be. I ended mine on a row 8, and the first 2 stitches after my stitch marker are knit 2. So the rib that I'm going to work is knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. And I'm going to continue that around for a full inch of height. Let's say you ended on a round 4 though, in which case my next stitches in the round would be a purl 2. And in that case, I would do a purl 2, knit 2 around. So basically, if you end with a round 4, you're going to work a purl 2, knit 2 rib, as stated the whole way around. But if you end with a round 8 or a round 12, the first 2 stitches are going to be knit 2. So you're going to do a modified rib. You're going to work knit 2, purl 2 the whole way around. So the next 2 stitches for me are the knit, so I have to do a modified rib. So I'm just going to work with the knit 2 first, and then the purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. I'm right back to a 4-stitch repeat, just knit 2, purl 2. All right, that maintains that stitch pattern right at the beginning, which is what I want. I'm coming to the end of my first round of rib, and so I have purl 2, knit 2, and purl 2. So for me, with that modified rib, that's perfect. I ended with 2 purls. I'm starting with 2 knits. That means I have the correct number of stitches. So I'm just going to go around again. Same thing. I can count it out. I can say knit 2, purl 2, or my personal preference, I can just look and see what I need to do. I'm going to be working this section around and around and around until my ribbing is as tall as my ribbing was here. So I've been working on my rib for a while, and I have this much done. So I'm going to measure and see if I actually have 1 inch or not. The easiest place to measure from is where there's a place where the purls switch to knits. And there's a couple different places you can choose from. Every 3rd rib actually, or every 3rd knit rib, is a purl changing to knits. So you're just going to measure from under the needle down to those purls. And I am just a little bit shy. I am actually going to just do 1 more round, and I think that'll be enough, and then I'm ready to bind off. So I'll see you in just a little bit of time. Just going to go once more quick around. Coming to the end of that last round of rib, and now it's all about the bind off. So I'm going to show you a traditional bind off. I leave the marker in for a while Remember, for a bind off, we're just going to work the first 2 stitches. In my case, it's knits. You may have started with a purl too, but either way, you just work what you see, and then we're binding off the first stitch, taking it over the second stitch and off the tip of the needle and dropping it. Then I'm going to work the next stitch, whatever it is. And I'm going to take the second stitch over the first stitch and off the end of the needle. Now I don't want these stitches to be tight. I want this to be very stretchy. So ideally you're going to bind off at the same rate you cast on, but that's in a perfect world and we don't live in that one. So do your best. You want all that rib stitch stretch to stay in the headband. So leave it a little bit looser. Don't pull those stitches really tight. So you just keep working the next stitch and then pulling the first stitch off and over. Again, leave that stitch a little looser. Okay, and you can see this gap getting bigger in here, and that gap is going to continue to grow because I'm just binding off the stitches. Let me show you a faster trick. I'm just going to take off that for now because that is going to fall off otherwise. I'm also going to put on my tip because I'm not going to need that anymore. I'm going to put in a crochet hook into that stitch. All right, I can just use the crochet hook as a knitting needle and purl a stitch and then just drag it through, making sure it's big. So the next stitch is knit, so I can come in as if to knit and then just gently pull it through the next stitch. So I'm just using the crochet hook as a knitting needle, but then I can just pull it right through. Just be careful that you don't make those stitches too small. Bind off stitches can be pulled very tightly and it'll feel like this just hard line of stitches. So you want to choose a crochet hook that's comparable to your knitting needle size. This is an E4 or a 3.5 millimeter, and I'm using a size 3 needle, so the 4 is a little bigger, and a little bigger doesn't hurt. My millimeter size is 3.25. This is only 3.5. That's just going to let me keep a little bit extra stretch into that bind off row. And we're actually just measuring the size of the shaft right here. So if you have any question on the size of your needle, you can get your needle gauge and put it through the size that your knitting needle would be. So I'm on a 3. This is really close. It's not going to go through a 2. I feel like this is saying it's an E3, E4, but it's really more of a 3. So it's fine. I'm going to use it for this project. Just don't use something smaller or really large. So I wouldn't want to use a size H, which is a 5 millimeter crochet hook. I would just want to use something close to my needle size. Every once in a while, you want to go back and just make sure that the bind off looks like it's a pretty comparable to the cast on, that it has a good amount of stretch, and that you can pull it out nice and big so you can fit it over your head comfortably. I'm just going to keep working around and then we'll weave in our ends in just a few minutes. Yay, we are almost to the end. I just have 2 ends that I need to weave in, and of course take out 1 extra little stitch marker that I was just using to measure how high my stitch pattern was. So we're going to need that yarn needle now and the little pair of scissors. Just going to cut a 6 to 8 inch tail. Doesn't have to be very long at all. I'm going to take out this extra measurement marker. And let's start with this one. I'm just going to pull the cut end right through. And I have a little chain stitch sitting at the top right there. And you can see where I started. I have a little bit of a jog. This is a little higher than this. It kind of steps down right here. This is more pronounced up here. So I'm going to thread my yarn needle. If you want to see that again, I'll show you how to do that. Just drape it over the point, pull it down real tight, and hide it in your finger. It's like a hide and seek game. And then just push the needle eye down between your fingers and you should grab it right away. Okay. And the ideal thing would be to graft this. So basically, I'm going to come into the first stitch, which you can see is right here. And I just want to pull it in and create what looks to be another identical stitch. Kind of just continuing the chain where one stitch comes out of another stitch, coming out of another stitch, coming out of another stitch. Then I want to tension that up so it's about the same size. And then I'm going to get that yarn as quickly as I can without it showing to the back. So in those purl columns are great. And then what I like to do on a rib. So I like to go back and forth in this little knit column of stitches. I just feel like that does a decent job. It's a quick method. In general, when you're weaving in ends, you want to go in equal and opposite directions. And I'm never going to stop with the yarn hanging out over something that it's going to be hard to disguise. And at the end, I like to split a stitch. Do you see I'm taking the yarn needle right through in between other plies of yarn, and that will just help it kind of felt in there a little bit. I'm going to cut it at a bit of an angle, and hopefully that will stay in there nice and tight. That doesn't look too bad. When I block this, I'm going to maybe pull that down a smidge and try to get that looking even better at that point. Okay, let's do the original one. I want to take out this knot first. So this is the original tail. This is my cast on edge. And I had put in that little half hitch knot, but I really don't like those staying in there. So I'm going to pull that out. And you can see that original chain right there. And when I pull it tight, you can see kind of how it looks like the braids. Like a twisted braid, not really a 3 braid or a 4 strand braid, but just a twisted braid. And I'm going to go over in there, just kind of continuing that braided section. Again, trying to make it look as unobvious as possible. That's the key. So I think that's going to be okay for me. I'm not terribly concerned about these things, but some of you maybe. Just work on it. Again, going back and forth down a column of knit stitches, and then stopping in the middle between the columns of knits and coming up and piercing a single yarn. Sometimes you want to pull it a little tighter. And then when you stretch that out, it should not go anywhere. I can still see that tiny little edge, but I'm hopeful that that's going to felt in and stay put. And there we have it, a beautiful, stretchy January headband ready to wear. Let's see how we did. Now, I've been wearing this for samples, of course, but it looks like we reproduced that size pretty beautifully. Can't complain. I think our gauge worked. And that looks pretty amazing. So we have 2 size 4 January headbands. Well, knitters, congratulations on a job well done. I hope you really enjoyed the whole project. I hope you learned a lot through the process. And I hope you have a great headband or neck warmer to show for it. So please comment below in any video or all the videos. And please jump over into my community. I would love to see pictures of your finished headband. I want to celebrate with you and see all your wonderful hard work. Hey, I was thinking, if you're doing the knitting passport with us for 2026, I wanted to take a minute and show you all the different challenges that this January headband will check off. So let's go over and start looking at the itinerary cards, circling all the challenges that could be completed with the January headband. Let me start off with the tourist itinerary card, and right away I see a couple of things that you could potentially check off. Work a new stitch pattern that uses only knits and purls. So if you've not made either this rib pattern before or this center stitch pattern, if that's new to you, you can certainly check this off. If you are making this for yourself, you could check off make something for yourself. And we did work on circular needles, so certainly working on circular needles. If you tried that little bind off technique with the crochet hook, then you can say you worked a project that incorporates some crochet or a crochet hook. If you worked along with us, then you can also say you participated in a knit along. Let's move on to the Wanderer card. I was definitely waiting and knitting in an appointment this week, so I'm going to check this off. This is circumstantial. Maybe you did that, maybe not. If you did the knitted gauge and you kept tweaking it until you got the actual gauge that was required in the pattern, then you can certainly, with pride, check off that box. Good job. Again, if you kept it for yourself, you can check off make a simple project for yourself, because this was not hard to make. If you posted a comment about your piece, maybe gave me an update, sent a picture, this would all be ideal. That would be a qualifying challenge that you met. This is a simple pattern, or at least I think so, that is fun and rewarding. I hope you found it to be so. Let me know in the comments what you thought of it. But if you found it to be a simple pattern that was fun and rewarding, this could be at least one of your 3, and you're on your way to completing that challenge. If you decided to make one of these to give away, then you could say you made a small knitted gift. And if you, like I, ended up purchasing a hank of yarn that we had to wind into a skein, you could actually check this off. Now, I did not wrap it by hand, so I cannot check this off, not for me. But if you wrapped yours by hand, then kudos, good for you. I haven't shown you that technique yet, but maybe you already know how to do that, and maybe that's something you want a challenge you could check off. Let's look at the last card, the Explorer card. Knit an accessory you have never knitted before. So if you've never knitted a headband, this might be something you could check off. If you tried the bind off technique with the crochet hook, that may be a new bind off technique for you, so that may be something you could check off as well. Or maybe you've never bound off before and this is a new bind off technique for you, and that's okay. Go ahead and check it. Work a swatch in a new texture pattern. Again, if this is a new texture for you, these knits and purls, then you could check that off as well. So in the January headband project, let's see, we could maybe get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and a possible 12, 13, 14, or 15. So good job. I hope you've been successful and you enjoyed the project. And please let me know in the comments. Go into community and let us know what you're working on. We want to be inspired by what you're doing, and I would so appreciate that input. And give us a little bit of a sneak peek into your knitting bag and what's on your needles right now. All right, guys, I will see you soon. Happy knitting.